that if any of you follow me on Instagram, you know what I'm talking about when I say I was really looking forward to this show. Hello my friends, my name is AJ and welcome back to my book nook. Today I am going to be talking about the Netflix series Shadow and Bone. As a huge book reader, I am always someone who really wants to see adaptations of the books that I love, but then I'm also very worried because a lot of times these adaptations aren't very good. I have decided that I want to make a series on this channel where I take a look at book to visual medium adaptations, where I compare them and rate them based on how accurate they are and just give my regular review. In a new series that I am calling Pages to Stages. And yes, I'm aware that this show was mostly filmed on location and not sound stages, but you try rhyming on location with something. You can't. And if you can, well, let me know in the comments and you win, I don't know, you win a free subscription to my channel. Shadow and Bone is a series based on the Grishaverse trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. It is based on the first book in the series called Shadow and Bone, and I'm assuming that if they get second and third seasons, they will be based on the second and third book. The series stars Jessie May Lee as Alina, the map maker turned sun summoner, Archie Renault as Mal, Alina's friend from her childhood who is a soldier, Ben Barnes as the Darkling, or General Kerrigan, who is the leader of the magical Grisha, Freddie Carter as Kaz Brecker, the leader of the Crows gang, Amita Suman as Inej Gafta, who is the spy for the Crows gang, and Kit Young as Jesper, who is the sharpshooter and honestly comic relief of the Crows gang as well. Now, as you probably noticed, I mentioned the Crows gang quite a bit. If you're not familiar with the books, there is a couple of stories that are fit in the same universe as Shadow and Bone. There's the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and then there's also the Six of Crows duology, which follows a ragtag team of misfits as they pull off heists. And this show is set to not only be an adaptation of the book, but also as a prequel series for the Six of Crows. I apologize in advance. I probably mispronounced some of those people's names, and I will probably be mispronouncing some of the names of places and certain terms from the Grishaverse. I will try my best, but my memory is not the greatest. So how this is gonna work is that I'm gonna start by comparing the adaptation to the book series. Obviously, that is going to contain spoilers for the show and the book. So if you've read the book and you want to see if the series is worth your time, then you don't have anything to worry about. If you've watched the series but you haven't read the books, you probably don't have anything to worry about there either. However, if you haven't seen the series or read the book, or you just don't want spoilers, I've left some timestamps down below. You guys can skip to the end where I have just a regular spoiler-free review of the show. Let's get on with it, and I'm gonna jump right into what was the same from the book to the show. The story opens up on Alina and Mal, who grew up as orphans together, who are now serving in the Second Army for their country of Ravka. Alina is working as a cartographer and Mal is working as a tracker. In Ravka, they have this big shadow fold, this area of complete darkness that has completely split Ravka in two. In this dark area, there are all these monsters called Volcra, which are basically a mixture of those monsters from The Quiet Place and, I don't know, pterodactyls? Mal and Alina end up on this Sam skiff, this ship that is going through the Shadowfold to get to West Ravka. However, while they're on the ship, they are attacked by Volcra. When Mal gets injured and Alina gets captured by one of the Volcra, suddenly there's this burst of light that stops all the Volcra from attacking. Next thing Alina knows is that she's back at the army base. She's brought to the tent of the general of the Grisha, General Kerrigan, where she is revealed to have powers of summoning sunlight, which she did not even know she had. Now that her true power has been revealed, Alina is taken by the general and all of his soldiers back to the little palace in the capital of Os Elta, where she will be trained with fellow Grisha. On their way to the castle, however, they are ambushed by a group of Fjordan soldiers, the country to the north, which hate Grisha. Once she gets captured by one and is about to be killed by one, General Kerrigan rides in and uses his ability to save Alina, and she rides the rest of the way to Os Elta with him. On the way there, they take a little break where they have a little heart-to-heart. They talk about her power and what is going to be happening with her now that she's the Sun Summoner and possibly the person who's going to save them all. They talk about his his power. Once they arrive at the palace, Alina quickly becomes friends with Genya, a Grisha who has the ability to manipulate the way people look. Genya helps her get ready to go perform for the king, where she will reveal her powers to him and get his blessing to be trained by the Darkling, or General Kirigan, to strengthen herself enough so that she can get rid of the Shadowfold once and for all. She demonstrates her power with the help of the Darkling, as she's still not able to call upon her power herself, and once she gets the blessing from the king, she is welcomed with open arms by the Grisha to train alongside with them. Alina goes on to explore the palace. She comes across this library where she meets the king's religious advisor, the Apparat, who tells her that people are already making altars to her, that she is seen as a saint. Alina then goes to train with Bagra, who is this ancient Grisha who has helped all the others to hone their powers, and she struggles to call her power at all. Alina also goes to combat training, where she fights this girl named Zoya, who has been bullying her since she's arrived at the little palace. Alina and Kirigan have another chat where he reveals that the Black Heretic, the ancient Darkling who had created the Shadowfold, is actually his great-great-grandfather, and that he has spent his entire life trying to undo the terrible thing that his great ancestor has done. Alina continues to train with Bagra and is still struggling to summon it to Bagra's liking, and suggests that she gets an amplifier for herself like some of the Grisha have, so that her powers can become stronger. Later that night, Alina is thinking about how much things have changed, how she hasn't seen Mal since she left the camp, how she's been writing letters to him and he hasn't been responding. She realizes that she's been holding back for him and that she needs to stop doing that, and she decides to finally go back to Bagra, summon her power, and she's now stronger than she ever has been before. Alina is preparing to demonstrate her powers at the Winter Fete. While she's getting ready for it, David, a Grisha fabricator, arrives with some gloves for her, which can help to hone her powers a bit, and we see that Genya and David have a bit of a romantic interest in each other. I keep wanting to call her Genya. I spent the entire book series thinking it was pronounced Genya, and now it's Genya. It's like that GIF versus GIF thing. I know that technically the creator says it's supposed to be GIF, but I'm always gonna have it be called GIF in my head. At the fete, Alina demonstrates her power and amazes everyone, and at the same time, Mal arrives at the palace, having tracked the stag, which Alina has been dreaming about, which is actually an ancient amplifier that the general has been looking for. Alina and Kirigan sneak off from the party, where they make out for a bit. Bagra comes to Alina and tells her that he's not actually the person he says he is, that he is the Black Heretic himself, and that he's only trying to use Alina so that he can use the fold as a weapon. Alina escapes from the palace. While she's running through the woods, she comes across Mal. They find out that they actually have both been writing letters to each other, and neither one of them have been getting them. Alina fills him in on all the stuff that he needs to know about the general, and then they decide to go off and find the stag for themselves so that Alina might be strong enough to stop him once and for all. Alina and Mal have another lovely conversation where they realize that they both have feelings for each other, and eventually they both find the stag. However, Alina, once seeing it, realizes that she's had this bond with it and she can't actually kill it. Unfortunately, as soon as she decides this, General Kirigan and all of his men arrive, and a fight breaks out, and Kirigan kills the stag and uses its antlers to make a collar for Alina so that they are forever bonded, so that he can access her powers for himself. Back on the base next to the Shadowfold, Genya arrives. Alina finds out that Genya has actually been a spy for Kirigan this whole time, that she hasn't been delivering her letters to Mal, and that she has poisoned the king. Alina, the Darkling, and his men, a bunch of ambassadors from different countries, and Mal all board onto the ship to go into the Shadowfold. He stops the ship and uses his power to push the Shadowfold into the village on the other side of it, destroying the entire thing and killing everyone there, as he reveals to the ambassadors that now that he has this terrifying weapon, there's never going to be another war with Ravka or with the Grisha. A fight breaks out where Alina regains control of her power. Mal gets thrown off the ship and Alina has to rescue him, and then eventually they escape as Kirigan is left in the Shadowfold to deal with the monsters that he has created. That's basically everything that's the same. As you can see, it's a lot. It's mostly the entire plot. But now I want to get into what they changed. One of the big differences is that Alina is actually half Shu, the race from the country to the south of Ravka. Now the Shu hate Ravkins, they've been at war with them. The Shu also hating Grisha, wanting to cut them open, experiment on them, which means that Alina deals with a lot of people saying she looks like the enemy. Alina knows what it feels like to be different, which really fuels that need for her to want to be like everyone else that is in the book as well, and I think that this actually helps that a lot. Basically everything with the crows. You might have noticed I didn't mention anything about them in the previous part because everything with them is completely new. As this is a prequel, nothing that we see is actually the same as any of the books that they're in. The only thing that really is based on the book is the origins of Nina Zenek and Matthias Helvar. We get to see that storyline in Six of Crows of how they meet, and we get to see that in this as well. So the Darkling is also called General Kirigan. In the books, he's only called the Darkling. We get to see things from other people's perspectives. The book is solely from Alina's point of view. I also think that that really helped with Mal and Alina's relationship. In the books, it didn't really work very well. There didn't seem to be much chemistry. Mal was not that interesting. But because we got to see Mal and Alina's relationship, we did actually get to see from both perspectives. The prophecy of the Sun Summoner. It's a lot more well known in the show. In the books, that's not mentioned at all. We get to see a lot more of Mal and Alina's childhood. We get to see some more flashbacks of them. However, a lot of things are a little bit different. For example, when Mal and Alina are tested as children to see if they have Grisha powers, Alina uses a piece of broken cup to push into her hand so that she's in pain so that the test won't work. And that's how she got the scar on her hand. But in the books, Alina is aware that she has powers when she gets tested and pushes them down so that she can be with Mal. And the cut on her hand comes from her pushing a cup fragment into her hand when she was very excited to see Mal coming home from a hunting trip. Alina's training happens a lot faster. In the books, we see her training with Botkin, who is the person who trains for combat training, and we see her struggle a lot. And her final fight that we see with him is her fighting Zoya, and that fight happens on her first day in the show. We see a lot more of her training with Baghra, a lot more of her struggling. She does end up using the gloves that David gives her because she still needs them. In the show, Alina is the one who decides to go across on the skiff when it first arrives in the very first episode. She isn't originally supposed to go, but she burns some maps so that she'll be forced to go alongside Mal. In the book, she's already going across with him. Also, when she becomes taken by the Grisha to go back to the palace, Mal is a lot more upset in the show than he is in the book. This may be a bit nitpicky, but now we're going to talk about Kefta colors. When Alina first gets her Kefta, it is a blue one for a summoner, and then later she gets offered a black one, and she says, no, I don't want a black one. And then finally she decides, yeah, I do want a black one, and wears one to the Winter Fate. In the books, it's a little bit different than that. She gets offered a black one first, and she says, no, I think I'd actually like a blue one. I don't want to stand out. And then she does wear a black one to the Winter Fate. However, that's not a choice that she has. It's just given to her. The conversation that she has with the Darkling about his history with the Black Heretic actually doesn't happen in a later time. It actually happens during their first little heart-to-heart when they're riding to the little palace. Another thing that I think a lot of people are upset about is that the Darkling tells Alina, hey, call me Alexander. The reveal of his name is a big deal. He's always been known as the Darkling. He's always been this imposing figure. And then I think it's the third book, he reveals to her that his name is Alexander. And it's this huge moment. So a lot of people were upset that it happened so in passing, myself included. In the show, Alina is not aware that the Darkling is looking for the stag. In the books, she's actually well aware that he's looking for the stag. He's talked about it with her. He's looking for it for her. When Mal goes to track the stag in the show, he and only two of his friends go off to find it. In the book, Mal doesn't volunteer for this expedition. His entire unit is sent off to look for the stag. Prior to the Winter Fate in the show, Alina and Genya end up going to explore the entertainers' tents and all of their little demonstrations. This doesn't happen in the book, and which actually ties into something that they took out from the book versus the show, where Alina and Mal are on the run. They come across this village where Butterweek is happening, which Butterweek is mentioned when they go to the little carnival entertainers moments with her and Genya. When Alina and the Darkling have their first kiss in the show, it happens when Alina goes to his quarters and talks to him, and Alina is the one who initiates it. However, in the book, their first kiss happens by the lake as he's walking her back to her room after some training with Baghra, and he's the one who initiates it. In the book, when Mal arrives at the palace, he and Alina have an argument about how much she's changed, which never actually happens in the show. The Darkling also himself is very different. In one of the later episodes episodes where we get an actual look into his past, about why he is the way he is. We see the moment that he created the Fold. One of my big issues with the Darkling in the book is that it was hard to sympathize with him. I knew that he was supposed to be a sympathetic character, but I didn't find that at all. They also toned down how harsh he is. In the book, he's a lot more brutal. Mal and Alina kiss before they find the stag. That didn't happen in the show. I mean, I'm not even someone who really liked Mal and Alina together in the book. That moment was one of my favorites in the book because the imagery of it was just so beautiful and so strong. I'm very sad that it just didn't happen in the show, if I'm being honest. When they find the stag, Alina puts up her shield, and in the show, the Darkling says, hey, if you drop your shield, my healers will hear Mal, so he won't die, and she drops the shield for him. However, in the books, Alina had actually had a discussion with Mal before they found the stag, saying, if the Darkling gets the stag, I want you to kill me so that he can't use me to go hurt people. She makes him promise that, and then in that moment, as she's holding up the shield, the Darkling is kind of overpowering her, and she says, Mal, you have to do it. You have to kill me right now, and he can't do it. The Darkling overpowers her and ends up getting the stag. This is a mixed response I've seen. Some people like it, some people don't. Is that the collar that she has to have with the antlers. In the book, it's just a collar. The antlers are fused together, so there's no clasp. She can't take it off. It's stuck around her neck forever. In the show, the antlers are fused into her collarbone. The Darkling also has to have a piece of the antlers fused into his hand in order for his bond with her to work. However, in the book, this didn't actually happen. Another instance of someone being on a ship when they're not supposed to. In the book, the Darkling brings Mal onto the ship with them when they go into the Fold, saying that he's going to throw him to be eaten by the Volcra. In the show, Mal sneaks onto the ship so that he can kill the Darkling. The character of Zoya it's hard to describe because she's both in the show more and less than she was in the books. In the books, she is not on the ship at all when Alina goes into the Fold, but in the show, she's on the ship both when Alina uses her powers for the first time and when she and the Darkling have their final showdown. However, in the book, Zoya is at the palace the entire time Alina is there. However, in the show, after Alina and Zoya fight on their first day, Zoya is sent away from the palace. And the finale of the show, the big battle on the sand skiff in the Fold, Darkling versus Alina and Mal, is very different. In the books, it's just Alina and the Darkling who are really fighting. Her and Mal flee away on foot to escape from the Fold. However, in the show, there's a lot more people who have to escape. The crows are on the skiff, as is Zoya, and so instead of having that happen, the Darkling is thrown overboard. He's the one who gets left on his feet. Mal and Alina and Zoya and all the crows escape on the skiff. The entire fight scene is a bit different just because there are so many more people that they have to care about. Welcome back, non-spoiler people. How are you doing? Let's talk about what I liked and what I didn't like. I thought that the relationships between the cast were great. All of the casting is amazing. If any of you have watched any of the interviews or behind the scenes videos, the cast is perfect. Jessie May Lee is just pure sunshine. She's perfect for Alina. Ben Barnes is obviously super passionate about the books. He's a huge fan of it. Apparently, he recorded pronunciations of all the places and then sent them to the cast. I love that he was so passionate about it and that he put so much work into it. The chemistry with the cast was phenomenal. The things that they changed worked really, really well. In the books, Alina doesn't have a lot of agency. A lot of decisions are made for her, but in the show, Alina actually does take charge. The relationships between her and Mal, her and the Darkling, between Kaz and Inej, between Nina and Matthias, the crows, all those relationships are phenomenal. I was absolutely so in love with all of it. The setting, the costumes, the color palette, the music was phenomenal. I think that this is going to become a show where I watch it a lot as a comfort watch. It takes a bit of getting used to with the transitions between the Crow storyline and the Alina's storyline, especially in the first episode. There's a bit of a time difference in the first episode, which they don't even reveal until the end of the episode. And then the rest of the show, they're lined up time-wise. It was also a little bit difficult with Matthias and Nina's storyline. It didn't feel like it fit. I love Matthias and Nina. I really want to see more of them. They were phenomenal. I really do. I make it sound like I didn't like it. I loved them. but it just didn't feel like it fit with the rest of the story. I also would have liked to see more training with Alina. I would have liked to see Alina struggle a bit more. She seemed to get used to it very, very quickly. I wanted to see her actually worry about the fact that she's not good enough. So what are my final thoughts? I really, really like the show. If you're a fantasy fan, I think it's for you. It's very different than a lot of fantasy shows though, so I think it still gives you something fresh and exciting. I love it. It's such a great series. The cast has amazing chemistry. The relationships are amazing. The casting is amazing. The whole show looks and sounds great. It pays a lot of great homage to the original books, but it also branches off enough that it is very original, and I think that whether you're new to the series or whether you're a longtime lover of the books, it's going to be perfect for you. I would give this an accuracy rating of 4.5 Grisha out of 5, and overall I'm going to give this series a rating of 4.5 crows out of 5. Yes, I'm aware there are 6 of them, but only 5 of them showed up in the series, so we're rating it out of 5. If Wylan appears in the second season, then I'll change my rating to out of 6. But yeah, that's it for me today. If you liked this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more stuff like this, let me know. Let me know what other shows or movies that are based on books you want to see in the comments below. If you want to talk about the show, whether you liked it, whether you didn't, whether you agree with me on if you think the changes benefited or not, let's talk down below. Let's try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible though, or at least give a spoiler warning so that everyone can interact down below safely. I'm planning on doing a review of the Shadow and Bone series, so if that's something you're interested in, maybe hit subscribe so that you can get notified for when that video comes out. But that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see all of you lovely people in the next video. Bye!